All right, let's just jump right in. Simon Sinek, right? He has this amazing way of taking really complex ideas and just boiling them down to these simple, powerful truths. And it all really starts with a choice, a fundamental choice that honestly we all make every single day, probably without even thinking about it. So I've got a question for you. When you look at any situation, what's the very first thing your eyes land on? Is it the goal, the prize, the thing you're actually after? Or is it the barrier, the challenge, the long, annoying line standing between you and that thing? Because how you answer that, well, it changes absolutely everything.
Sinek tells this perfect story about it. He's out at an event, and after a run, there's a table with free bagels. Awesome, right? But there's this huge line. His friend immediately sees the line and goes, ugh, forget it, it's way too long. But Sinek, he's not even looking at the line. He only sees the bagels. So he just walks up, politely reaches between two people, grabs a couple of bagels, and says, thanks, done. He saw the goal. His friend only saw the obstacle.
Now here's where it gets really interesting, especially when we think about our work. Picture this. Two lumberjacks. They start at the same time, they stop at the same time. But one of them, get this, consistently chops more wood. And he does it while taking an hour off every single day. The other guy, who's working nonstop, is just completely losing his mind. How is that even possible? And boom, there it is, the whole point. The more productive lumberjack wasn't just kicking back and taking a break. No way. He was using that time strategically. He was sharpening his axe. See, he understood something huge. Sometimes, to get more done, you have to stop doing the work so you can improve your ability to do the work. It's about playing the long game, not just grinding it out day after day. So keeping those two mindsets, seeing the bagel and sharpening the axe, in our back pocket, Sinek gives us a framework. Let's start with the first part. 3 rules for you, just for you, for mastering your own approach to, well, everything. And these rules, they're so simple, but man, they are deep. Number 1, go after what you want. See the bagel, not the line. Number 2, take full 100% accountability for your actions. And number 3, which might just be the most important one of all, stay humble.
Now, to really get what he means by accountability, we have to take a trip back in time, back to the 18th and 19th centuries. This thing called puerperal fever, basically the Black Death of childbed, was just tearing through Europe. In some hospitals, as many as 70% of women were dying right after giving birth. It was a nightmare, and all these great men of science, the doctors, were desperate to figure out why.
So they studied everything. They were doing autopsies in the morning, and then they'd go straight to the maternity ward to deliver babies in the afternoon. It wasn't until the mid-1800s that someone had the horrifying realization. The doctors weren't washing their hands. They were carrying the disease themselves. They were the problem. And that's the core of accountability, right? Having the courage to look in the mirror and admit when the problem is you. And this idea just scales right up into leadership. Sinek tells a story about a barista named Noah who worked at 2 different places, the Four Seasons and Caesar's Palace. At the Four Seasons, his managers were constantly coming up to him and asking, how can I help you do your job better? And he loved it. He was a star employee. But at Caesar's, the managers were just lurking around trying to catch him doing something wrong. It's the same person, Noah, but a totally different employee based on the environment. Leadership creates accountability. And that brings us to the 3rd rule for yourself, humility. A former Undersecretary of Defense tells this incredible story. He speaks at a conference 2 years in a row. The first year, while he's the undersecretary, he's flown business class, a car picks him up, and they bring him coffee in a nice ceramic cup. The next year, he's no longer in that role. He flies coach, grabs a taxi, and gets his own coffee in a styrofoam cup. And he had this huge epiphany. He said, the ceramic cup was never meant for me. It was meant for the position I held. I deserve a styrofoam cup. What a lesson. Okay, so now that we've kind of looked inward, Sinek's framework turns outward. Once we start to master ourselves, we've got to master how we interact with other people. And for that, he's got 2 really powerful rules for building real strong connections. The first rule is simply this: take care of each other. And who better to learn that from than the Navy SEALs, right? So when you ask the SEALs who actually makes it through their insane selection process, the answer is not what you'd think. It's not the guys who look like they're carved out of granite trying to prove how tough they are. It's not the natural-born leaders who delegate everything. And it's not the star college athletes who've never really been pushed to their breaking point. Nope, none of them make it. the ones who get to call themselves SEALs. They're the ones who, when they are at their absolute limit, physically and emotionally, just completely gassed, somehow, somewhere, they find the energy to turn to the person next to them and help them. Being elite isn't about how tough you are. It's about your capacity to help other people. The second rule for others comes from one of the most incredible leaders the world has ever seen, Nelson Mandela. He said he learned how to lead by watching his father, who was a tribal chief. And out of all those meetings he sat in on as a boy, there were two key lessons he never forgot. And the most important lesson by far was this one. His father was always the last person to speak. By waiting until everyone else had said their piece, he did two brilliant things. First, he made every single person in that room feel like their voice mattered. And second, he got the massive benefit of hearing every single perspective before he made a decision. It's the ultimate leadership hack. Listen to understand, not just to reply. So you might be thinking, okay, these are great stories, sharpening axes, humble leaders, listening, but why is this stuff so critical right now, more than ever before? Well, it's because the world we're all operating in has fundamentally changed, and a big reason for that is technology. We are all living in a dopamine-driven world now. Every time your phone buzzes with a text, every like, every notification, it gives your brain a little hit of this feel-good chemical. And what's kind of scary is that scientists will tell you it is the exact same chemical that makes smoking, drinking, and gambling so intensely addictive. And for a generation that's grown up with this stuff in their pocket 24/7, the consequences are pretty serious. Sinek points out things like lower self-esteem compared to previous generations, a lot more superficial friendships, and a real lack of coping mechanisms for stress. When things get tough, the instinct isn't to turn to a person for help. It's to turn to a device for a quick temporary fix. And that is exactly where leadership has to step in. The old way of thinking, that sort of extractive mindset of asking, how do I get the most out of my people? As if they're a towel you're just trying to wring out, it's just not working anymore. The question leaders need to be asking now is, how do I create an environment that helps my people be at their natural best? It's a total shift toward empathy. And really, this brings us right to the heart of Sinek's whole philosophy. He believes that loving your job should be a right, not some lottery you might win. The difference between stress and passion? It isn't the hours you work. It's the why behind the work. It's having leaders who create a space where we feel safe and valued, and like we're all part of something bigger than ourselves. So let's just bring this all back home, right back to the beginning, with one last question for you to think about. In your work, in your life, are you actively taking the time to sharpen your axe, to learn, to grow, to help the people around you? Or are you just staring at the obstacle, waiting in a long line that you might not even have to be in at all? The choice, as always, is yours.